Hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm Kira and today I'm going to be showing you how to color in Amazon paper coloring books. Now, if you've been here since the beginning of my channel, you'll know that I used to have quite the negative stance on coloring books printed on Amazon quality paper. But hey, I can admit that I was way too quick to judge. I just hadn't figured out how to make Amazon paper work for me. I can't remember which video it was, but in one of my past videos, I asked for recommendations on budget pencils that work on Amazon paper, and I received so many helpful suggestions from you, so thank you very much. And one of the recommendations that I received was actually the 126 set of ARRTX colored pencils. ARRTX was actually kind enough to send me this set of pencils, and today we'll be putting them to the test in the only Amazon coloring book that I own, which is Adorable Town by Lainey Dow. I realize that I've shown and colored in this book quite a bit over my last couple of tutorials, but I've really grown to love this book after changing my techniques and my expectations around Amazon paper. And I'm actually considering adding another Amazon coloring book to my collection. So you can definitely say that I've come a long way since swearing off of Amazon coloring books just a couple of months ago. But first off, let's talk about my initial impressions of these pencils. Here are the pencils here, the ARRTX 126 colors. They come in this gorgeous packaging here. I must admit, I really do love ARRTX's packaging. I think it's so cute and aesthetic. I mean, look at these little bunnies. Adorable. On the back here, you can see all the colors that you get within the 126 set. Obviously, this is not an exact replication, but it gives you a general idea. The packaging did get a little bit squished on its way to Australia, which is fair enough. It came a very long way. And yes, these are claimed to have a 3.8mm soft core, richly saturated pigments, break resistant, easy to blend, and a wide range of colors, which I definitely agree with. So when you open the packaging, you get it like this and voila. Now, they didn't come in this order. I put them in this order myself. I tried to put them in somewhat of a prismatic color order because that's just what I prefer when I'm swatching them out. And these little trays do come apart. I will say I've watched a lot of people review these on their channels, and whilst I think these trays are really cool and such a unique concept, I agree with a lot of people when they say they aren't the most practical once you start really using your pencils, because as you can see, this middle row here, once you start using them and they get smaller, they're going to get really tricky to pick out. So I won't be keeping them in these trays. However, I'll definitely be using the trays because I think these are going to be super handy for when I'm coloring a page and I just want to keep out all the pencils that I'm currently using. I can just stick them in this tray here. It's some really soft, thick foam, rather than just like leaving my pencils out or bundling them all together in like a little pencil case. I think these are going to be a lot handier. Now, here is what the barrel of the pencil looks like. Pretty straightforward. We've got some cute stars there, and this is how you can tell which color is which. For me personally, the numbers are a little bit tricky to read, so when I swatched them out, I didn't swatch out the numbers, I just swatched out the color. However, I also know a lot of people end up numbering their pencils themselves by giving them like little dot stickers and giving them their own numbers, so I might do that with my pencils because I always end up putting them in prismatic order and not in the order that they come in. So that'll be something that I will do in the future once I have a lot of time up my sleeve and feel like doing some organizing. However, I have spent the last month creating my own little swatch book that is just going to be full of all my swatches of all the different supplies I have. I like having them all in one spot rather than within the different pencil sets. So here is the title page. A lot of you have been wondering how to spell my name, so this is it. It's probably the one way you wouldn't expect it to be spelled, so there you go, that's how you spell my name. And I've either cut out the swatches that I already had and stuck them in, or I've just made some new ones. And what I love about having my swatches all in one book is that I can easily compare my pencil brands. So these are obviously my Brute Funas, my Prismacolors, And then now my ARRTX. So this is what they look like all swatched out here. And I think this is actually a really great range of colors. I think this is one of the best ranges of colors I've ever seen. I do think there is maybe just a tad too many blues that look quite similar to each other, especially these ones here. I feel like all look fairly similar. I would have maybe preferred a greater range of pinks and also some browns. I feel like we're lacking some light golden browns in this set. However, I am so pleased with the selection of purples. That was something I was slightly disappointed with when I got my Prismacolors because I felt like they just didn't really have many light purples, but they've really nailed the light purple selection. And I definitely think this is a soft core pencil set. However, in saying that, this is probably the hardest lead pencil that I own, which is why I'm excited to try it out in Amazon paper because I've heard that harder lead pencils do better in those books. So that's why we're here today. We're testing it out. Some of the colors were a tinsy bit scratchier than others, predominantly the purples and blues. So this violet blue was a tinsy bit scratchy, as well as the violet color. And I remember this ocean blue one being a little bit scratchy as well. But with all that being said, it's not an unmanageable scratchiness. I just noticed that it wasn't as soft as the other colors, which obviously different pigments, different manufacturing processes. Before we get into testing these pencils out on Amazon paper, let's chat about why the paper in Amazon books isn't optimal for colored pencil. Firstly, the paper that Amazon uses to print their books is not made for colored pencil. It's a low quality, thin paper that lacks tooth or texture, and this makes it harder for the colored pencil to grip the surface effectively. It's a struggle to build up layers and also a struggle to achieve an even coverage. And on top of this, the thinness of the paper can also lead to tearing, warping, or buckling if there's a heavy pressure applied. Now, I would say that I generally have quite the heavy hand when it comes to coloring. A majority of the time, I utilize the blending/burnishing technique over the layering technique. However, I've heard that the layering method is a lot more effective on Amazon paper, so I thought I would test out both methods at the back of this coloring book to see which method I personally prefer for Amazon paper. I believe this method here is technically called blending, but I prefer to call it burnishing because it's just me burnishing from the get-go. I start off with the darkest shade in my color combination using a fairly hard pressure to remove as much white tooth as possible. Then I lighten my pressure as I get to the point where I want my next color to begin. I also change the direction that I'm coloring in. Although I still color in circles, I'll do one vertical layer of coloring in a circular motion and then I'll switch it to horizontal. This just helps create an even streak-free blend, especially on this smooth paper. I then repeat these steps with each shade in my color combination, burnishing from the left side and then lightening my pressure as I get to the point where I want my colors to overlap. As I said, I don't use the layering technique too often, so I don't know how accurate my technique is. But what I did in this instance was start with the lightest shade in my color combination and just filled in the entire area. Yet again, I frequently changed the direction I was coloring in and used a fairly light pressure to build up the color layer by layer. I then repeated this with the darker shades in my color combination, but obviously sticking to the areas where I wanted it to be darker. And then you just keep doing this layer by layer until you get to the final layer where you burnish. As I somewhat suspected, I definitely think layering is the way to go on Amazon paper, especially with these ARRTX pencils. The blend is just generally smoother and there's a lot less white tooth peeking through. But with that being said, I did decide to use both methods whilst coloring this page in Adorable Town because it's just so much quicker, and I found that it's still an effective method when coloring in smaller spaces, whereas larger spaces, it is better to use the layering technique to create a more seamless blend. So here's the page that I chose to color for this video and to test out the ARRTX pencils on. As you can see, I already based the page with alcohol markers because then I don't have to worry about covering all the white tooth with my pencil. The alcohol markers have already done that for me. Now, I didn't film me coloring every single aspect of this page, but what I did do was show the color combinations that I'm using for each alcohol marker color. Does that make sense? you'll see what I mean. I've put the color combinations on the left-hand side of the screen, and the colors are shown in the order from darkest to lightest. Now this is the same color combination that I use to compare the blending and layering methods, and I seriously love this color combination. It's one of my favorites. Any sort of greeny blue or bluey green, just, it makes my heart happy for some reason. This is the color combination that I use to color in the awning and any other elements that I based with this light green marker color. And as you can see, because this is a larger space, I am using the layering method. However, this time I'm starting with the darkest shade rather than the lightest. This was because I didn't want to color the entire space with pencil. I wanted the alcohol marker to be the highlight color. But with all this being said, this is only the second brand that I've used on Amazon paper. The other pencil brand that I used was my Brute Funers, and I definitely believe the ARRTX pencils have outperformed them. These pencils layer a lot better than the Brute Funers that I own, and I believe this is because it is a harder lead pencil. Even though they're advertised as softcore, which I think they are, they're still a lot harder than my Brute Funers. And this fact lends the pencils to perform more effectively on smooth Amazon paper. On smooth paper, pencils with a softer core tend to saturate the page with pigment more quickly, losing their ability to hold additional layers more effectively. Whereas pencils with a harder core can build up color in a more controlled manner, layer by layer without overwhelming the page, and allow for a more gradual buildup of color. Now I know there are colored pencils out there that have an even harder core like the polychromos. However, polychromos are so expensive, and I'm not going to be buying such an expensive product just to color in my Amazon coloring books. So the ARRTX are a great budget alternative. In Australia, I've seen this pencil set go as low as $68 on AliExpress. This rounds out to approximately 54 cents per pencil, and I'm pretty sure they're even more inexpensive in the US. An aspect that could be a drawback for some of you in regards to these pencils is the fact that they're not available to purchase open stock. So if you do run out of a pencil, you will have to purchase the entire set again if you want to replace that pencil. This is personally not a problem for me because I usually will just substitute that pencil for another pencil brand. However, if it's an important aspect for you, that is something to take into consideration. And they also come in a smaller set of 72 if you'd prefer. But overall, I am super happy with how these pencils performed on Amazon paper. They're definitely going to be my go-to brand when I color in Amazon books in the future. Nevertheless, if you want me to try out another pencil brand on Amazon paper, let me know in the comments below. Perhaps I could do a video where we do a bit of a pencil brand battle off, maybe, I don't know. Let me know, I'm not doing a good job at selling the video idea to you. But at the end of the day, when it comes to coloring on Amazon paper, I think it really boils down to managing your expectations and just knowing that your pencils aren't going to perform the best on the paper. I had my expectations way too high when I initially started coloring in this book. I went from Johanna Basford to Amazon paper, and of course, that's why I garnered such a negative first impression. But now that I've managed my expectations, I really enjoy coloring in this book and know that I'm not going to get the perfect blend of colors on my page, but I can still have a lot of fun and have a great end result as well. So this is what the page was looking like once I had fully shaded it in with pencil, and I decided to come back on camera to film my favorite part of the coloring process. I've said it before, I'll say it again. acrylic marker details. However, it can also be one of the most nerve-wracking parts of the coloring process because I often find that it makes or breaks a page. I started off using my new Posca paint pen that I showed in my recent coloring haul. However, I found that it was already drying up after only using it on a few pages. So yeah, I don't think I'll be purchasing Poscas again. So I swapped it out with my budget acrylic paint pen from Officeworks. This marker is fine, but I just find that it can be a little bit clumpy sometimes, and when I color over the top of it with pencil, it often scratches off, which I had the issue with later in this video. If you want a more detailed explanation on how I use acrylic marker in my coloring books, make sure to check out the dedicated video that I did a couple of weeks ago. I give you all the details there. I just find that adding those little extra details just brings the page to life, reviving any small elements that might have been lost during the basing or pencil coloring process, and just adds more dimension to the page as well. Now, I hadn't used much glitter gel pen in this book in the past, so I decided that it deserved a little extra pizzazz. Some of you know that I've been working on a technique where I do a base layer of acrylic paint marker and then I go over the top with glitter gel pen. It probably would have turned out better if I hadn't been using my budget acrylic paint pen, because the gel pen would have had a smoother surface to lay on. But even so, it still turned out pretty well on this page. As per usual, it's really hard to capture glitter gel pen on camera, but trust me, in real life, it has this gorgeous glittery embossed effect. Now, I did go back and forth quite a bit when deciding whether or not I should add highlights to the croissant sandwich. Yet again, I felt like this could make or break the page. So what did I decide to do? I decided to go for it. And yes, this is when I decided to color over the top of the acrylic paint pen because the white just felt a little bit too stark in my opinion. Yeah, I had quite a few issues with the acrylic paint pen scratching off with the colored pencil on top, but I am fairly certain that if I had used a better quality paint pen, these ARRTX pencils would have laid on top of it like a dream. Obviously, you never want to use too much pressure on top of acrylic paint pen because it's going to scratch off no matter the quality. But with a light touch, even with this budget acrylic paint pen, the ARRTX pencils really laid down a nice even layer of color. And there you have it, team, my first page colored with the ARRTX pencils on Amazon paper. Like I said, the only other brand that I've used on Amazon paper in the past is my Brute Funers, and I definitely think the ARRTX are the winner in comparison, especially with the layering technique in the larger spaces and then the blending and burnishing in the smaller spaces. And if you'd like to pick up this set of pencils for yourself, I'll leave the link in the description below. And if you'd like to support my little channel even further, you can also shop for these pencils through my Amazon storefront. Links are in the description for that as well. Alright, happy coloring friends, have a good day, have a good life, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!